Well, hello guys. Today it's time to talk about storyline missions. But before we begin, just want to apologize for not having a video up last week. I have been sick and just didn't really feel like recording. But hey, we got an upload finally. So in this video I'm gonna run Business Magnate, which is a Deck 8 Galente storyline mission, and I will do it in my good old Bellicose 2 covered ops. And I'm also gonna explain why there's a reason to run storyline missions in something that isn't a battleship or a battle cruiser. Let's get right into it. The Bellicose is a great cruiser to do storyline missions in because it has good DPS and a great range, and it's also pretty small with the signature radius and most importantly the source radius. It's also a great alternative to faction cruisers because it's way cheaper than a faction cruiser, and it's also as effective kinda. I haven't really run them in faction cruisers, but it does look pretty much as good. But of course faction cruisers are still a really good option too. So now, why should you run storyline missions with a cruiser and not a battleship, for example? Using a battleship will allow you to make a lot more ISK because you can clear the unknowns much faster. But battleships are also much slower, which makes them a lot more vulnerable. Cruisers on the other hand are pretty fast, and frigates too, and most importantly they will get warned if they get scanned. And if a frigate comes in to tackle you and gets close, you will not be able to kill it with a battleship as easily unless you have like large missiles and a typhoon too and like webs or something. But with a cruiser you have a much bigger fighting chance, and that gives cruiser a much higher survivability, in my opinion at least, especially if you know what you're doing with the cruiser. And that makes it very useful for you, as especially for new capsuleers that don't have as much ISK to lose than some of the other more experienced ones. Running storylines can also be a fun thing to do from time to time because you have to always be focused on the screen and always check local. Storyline missions can also provide good ISK if you are willing to take the risk itself, but as I just said, if you do them in a small ship, you will know when you get scanned and be able to get away easier. This is a fun thing to do between two roams, to just get a scroll from Jira and just do it. Also a nice way to spend your commendations. Now, as you probably will see on the footage on the screen, you will notice that I check everyone that jumps in local. If I recognize a pilot or an alliance or a corp that I know does a lot of PvP, I tend to align to a station or warp away. Just because you have a good chance of getting notified doesn't mean that you will always be notified, and that doesn't mean that you must 100% rely on it. Don't put all your eggs in one basket, because if they are using something like a Strategos or an Estero, or if they are rigged for scanning, that you might not be scanned, you might not be notified. A cruiser isn't that small, it isn't a dram yal. You won't always be notified, so you have to be careful. So yeah, it's always recommended to take extra precautions and always consider a gray or a red jumping in local as a threat. You need to know what to do if someone jumps in. It's not a question of if, it's a question of when. It's why you should always fit your ship in a way where you are ready to PvP. It doesn't always have to be like 100% PvP, but like if you get jumped, you need a way to defend yourself. You need a way not to get like one shot immediately. If something like a Cinnaball warps in, you need to at least survive a little bit, or maybe be able to like scare them off or something. Because if you get like alpha'd out immediately, this storyline wasn't really worth it, wasn't it? And stabs won't always help you too, because nowadays pirates in low-sec bring a lot of scrams, or they bring entire fleets with them with dedicated tackles. So a very organized team will kill you, and they most likely have a lot of experience in killing start runners just like you. So sometimes you will have to deal with a lost mail if you decided against docking, but in my opinion that doesn't mean that you should not run storyline missions, especially if you find it fun. It's something cool to do. It gives, it's small ship content, especially if you love flying cruises. It's a great way to make ESC with one. PvP isn't the only way to make ESC with cruises, especially that some of them aren't always fit for like T6 dead spaces, but they can run some of the lower storyline missions. I saw a lot of people run T10 storyline missions with faction cruisers. I am not sure if you can do it in like a covered ops cruiser. It's probably doable if you know what you're doing. I haven't tried it, but I did many T6 and T8 storyline missions and it's done very easily. I wouldn't recommend torpedoes on like a Bellicose, but normal missiles, easy peasy. And it's a great way to make some ESC if you live the kind of like the nomadic lifestyle. I myself used to be kind of more of a nomadic person. I lived in like Tama back then. Most of my ESC was made with like PvP and storyline missions, mostly because I really wasn't as good in PvP, so I died a lot and just ended up just making my ESC with storyline missions. And they do make ESC, and they are still pretty worth it. A lot of people think that they are not worth it at all now after scanning came out, but I think that they are still worth it. Maybe low-sec encounters aren't. I don't run them personally, but storyline missions are still pretty good. Doing them in a battleship is probably good if you are in an area where nobody will come, or you are ready, like you have like scouts or stuff like that around. So if you are alone, that's why I would recommend to do it in a cruiser. They also make a lot of ESC. Like if you clear a T10 Angel or Devil in like a Cinnabol, that's 300 million ESC. That's a lot of money. If you do a business magnate in a Bellicose cover ups, it's like 35 million in the reward, and like the chest costs like 60 million ESC. With if you decide to open it, you can get like a Gravedigger analyzer, which costs so much more. So yeah, that's basically what I have to say. Before leaving, make sure to comment and like to have a chance to win a month of free combo mega, and also sometimes I give them away on the Gulag instead of conversation, so maybe join that server too. Thank you for watching the video. Like, subscribe, and peace out.